Distracted driving, essentially driving without your full attention on the road, is a major cause of vehicle accidents around the world. Every year, hundreds of thousands of car drivers, pedestrians and other road users are injured or killed as a direct result of distracted driving. In 2018 alone, 2,841 people were killed in the US because of distracted driving. According to the US National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, these included 605 passengers, 400 pedestrians, and 77 cyclists. And those figures are, according to experts, extremely low, as statistically you have to prove that someone was actually distracted in order to cause the accident. There was a time when the cause of distracted driving was things like children arguing, or an animal moving around in the cabin, or perhaps you trying to read a map book while you were driving. Today, the cause of distracted driving is either you interacting with a touchscreen in your car, or these little things, our cell phones. And although our cars have become smarter over the years with lane keep assist, forward collision warnings, and even in some cases, cameras to make sure we're paying attention to the road ahead, we humans just aren't getting the message that distracted driving kills. In the United States alone, only a handful of states have a complete ban on using a handheld phone or gadget while driving. And although texting behind the wheel is now completely banned, except in Missouri and Montana, I'm looking at you two, people are still becoming distracted. And as such, the penalties are starting to rise, especially for those who cause accidents because of being distracted behind the wheel. Over in Europe, there are similar laws designed to ban the use of things that could be considered distracting. In the UK, for example, there's a minimum £200 fine and 6 penalty points on your licence. That's enough to lose your licence if you're a new driver, or halfway to losing your licence if you're not, if you're caught holding a smartphone at the wheel, or in fact even just operating your sat-nav. And while the law is a little hazy as to if it's actually legal to touch a mounted phone or a mounted sat-nav system, or to change the destination on your actual car display, for example, other countries have even stricter rules on what you can and can't do when you're behind the wheel. For example, in Germany, even touching an electronic device behind the wheel can lead to big consequences, which is why a court in Karlsruhe in southern Germany just banned a Tesla owner for focusing his attention on his Model 3's touchscreen display in order to adjust the windscreen wipers, which in turn caused him to veer off the road, colliding with a road sign and several trees in the process. That driver, who received a fine and a 1-month ban, decided to appeal the decision of the lower courts, and he took his case to a higher regional court, who then agreed with the original verdict and said that Tesla's touchscreen is an electronic device under German law, and thus its operation is only allowed under certain circumstances during movement. At this point, I should note that there are a couple of things that I really should take into consideration about this ruling and give you some context behind it. And frankly, I want to go a little deeper than most news sites have, because that's what we do. You see, while the headline of "Tesla driver banned for turning on his windscreen wipers" is factually correct, it also misses out some meat of the story. And for that, I need to explain a few things. As I'm sure most of you are aware, every Tesla on sale today has a very minimalist interior. Model S and Model X have their large, centre 17-inch touchscreens, as well as a smaller, customisable screen in front of the driver behind the wheel that, along with displaying vehicle speed, can be customised to show a number of different things. Model S and Model X also have discrete controls on steering wheel stalks for things like gear selection, windscreen wipers, and all of the other things that you'd find in most modern cars. But Model 3 and Model Y are even more minimal in their design than their larger, older siblings. They do away with the traditional behind-the-wheel screen and shift the speedometer and any warnings onto the car's centre-mounted single touchscreen. And while there is a button to activate your windscreen wipers on the steering wheel stalk, you can choose between a short press for a single wipe or a longer press to activate screen cleaning. If you need to do anything else with your wipers, you must either interact with a touchscreen or use voice commands. In an earlier version of this video, I incorrectly stated that in order to change the wiper speed manually, you had to go several menus deep through the touchscreen display. And while that is one way of getting to the wiper controls, there is a shortcut. By pressing one of the stalks on the steering wheel, you get access to a shortcut which then displays all of the wiper settings. To touch the stalk and then look at the center touchscreen display and choose the relevant option you want takes a lot less time than navigating through sub-menus, but it's still a lot more distracting than a traditional automotive wiper setup. That might seem like a terrible user interface, and I think it is. Yet Tesla, and I'm not excusing Tesla here because I think it's partly to blame, designed the wipers on Model 3 and Model Y to be fully automatic, meaning I'm guessing that in most cases Tesla didn't envisage you actually adjusting the wipers manually. But in the case of the German Model 3 owner who crashed adjusting his wipers, it's reported that the road was extremely wet that day and there was heavy rain, which is why he was trying to adjust the wipers. The time it took him to adjust the wipers was just long enough for the car to leave the road and then impact the sign and then hit the trees. And it's this length of time which prompted both judges in this case, the original judge and the appeals judge, to deem that the touchscreen interaction to adjust your wipers in a Model 3 was simply in violation of German law. As I often say on this channel, context is king. And we do try to provide that context, although, as I'll come to at the end of the show, sometimes we get it wrong. I'm sure some of you want to ask about autopilot activation, and to my knowledge, it was not active at the time of the crash. And frankly, since all semi-autonomous driver assistance systems I've ever used have struggled with torrential rain or heavy snow, especially ones that are visual sensor based, like Tesla's autopilot, I'm guessing it wouldn't have been much use in that situation. So where does that leave us? Well, under my understanding of the German law, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm talking about the law interpreted in this case, it's not illegal per se to touch and interact with a touchscreen. That's actually the bit being misinterpreted by many outlets. You can glance at the screen briefly or hit a button that's already on the screen itself, and that is absolutely fine. Like the UK law I cited earlier in this video, it's all, frankly, a little grey and down to individual judges to interpret. Those arguing about the result of the court case and calling it a travesty against Tesla say that German courts are frequently hard on the company, and they cite several cases, including a recent court battle in which Tesla got into trouble over the way it advertises autopilot and full self-driving on its cars to German customers. In that particular case, Tesla was found to be misleading in its language and advertising. And with Tesla often being on the losing side in cases in Germany, and German courts seemingly less harsh on German automakers, I can understand the sentiment that they're being picked on, even if I don't actually agree with it, because frankly I think the two cases I've cited were correctly decided. But what people are forgetting completely, and I really want to underline this, is the fact that Tesla, unlike most automakers, can rectify the problem really easily. Personally, I believe that Tesla should have never shipped with the menu system it has on Model 3. And yes, while there is voice control, which allows you to adjust some of the things without actually interacting with the screen, I am a firm believer that driving control should never be hidden in a menu. I've actually criticised other automakers for doing exactly that. Fiat Chrysler is guilty of hiding its heated seat controls a few menus deep in some of its cars on its centre touchscreen, and I've never understood why that's considered acceptable, but I'm kind of going off track a little. Because Tesla's system is essentially a giant touchscreen and a computer, there's no reason why Tesla can't push an update to make wiper and other vehicle controls instantly accessible on the home screen. Something which could have maybe solved this problem before it actually became an accident and then a court case. Tesla should be criticised for its original design here, but it should also be praised for how easy its architecture facilitates a software-driven solution to the problem. My ideal solution to this? Well, that'd be the little scroll wheels on the left and the right of every Tesla steering wheel. It's possible, on the Model S at least, to customise what those scroll wheels do. It seems like a smart thing to do to make them default to wiper speed, right? And of course, it is only a software update away. At the end of the day, This driver caused an accident because of their neglect. Tesla's design certainly facilitated their distraction, but it didn't cause it. Ultimately, just as always, it's not our cars, but we behind the wheel who really need to change. And quickly before I go, in the Weekend Roundup show, I referenced Elon Musk's discussion on Twitter about COVID-related government stimulus packages and him stating that, quote, another government stimulus package is not in the best interests of the people, even though Tesla benefited from those first US federal COVID stimulus package rounds. What I did not mention was that he then went on to respond that, quote, as a reminder, I'm in favour of universal basic income. As someone who prides themselves on getting their reporting right, and someone who personally supports universal basic income, I would like to apologise for failing to note the second tweet. It was a very important one, and that day I failed in my coverage. We put a note in the video, and I hope the mention here goes some way to rectifying our error. Nobody is perfect, and in the rush and the stress of turning around a show that takes between 14 and 16 hours to produce every Friday from start to finish, I screwed up. And I'm sorry. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.